The Spanish Civil War was one of the darkest periods of religious persecution in modern history. Thousands of clergy and lay Catholics were executed simply for their faith, targeted by communist, socialist, and anarchist forces who saw Catholicism as an enemy of their revolution. Among these martyrs were 51 young Claretian priests and seminarians in the town of Barbastro, whose steadfast courage and unwavering devotion in the face of certain death remain an inspiration to this day. The rising anti-Catholic persecution in Spain had been unstable for decades, torn between political factions. By 1936, the country was in open civil war. The leftist Republican government, dominated by anti-clerical ideologies, had long viewed Catholicism as a threat. Churches were burned, religious orders were outlawed, and clergy were imprisoned or executed in mass numbers. In the summer of 1936, this violence reached Barbastro, a small town in northeastern Spain. The Claretian community there, formerly known as the Missionary Sons of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, was home to seminarians studying theology in preparation for priesthood. These young men, many between the ages of 20 and 25, had dedicated their lives to God, not knowing that their ultimate sacrifice would come much sooner than they had imagined. The arrest and imprisonment on July 20th, 1936, communist forces stormed the Claretian seminary, claiming they were hiding weapons, an accusation often used as a pretext to justify violence against religious communities. Despite searching the entire premises, the soldiers found nothing. But the truth did not matter. The seminarians and priests were arrested, and the superior, Father Philippe de Jesus Martyrs, was taken along with 2 others to the town jail. The rest of the Claretians were forced into an auditorium in a nearby Piarist school, where they would spend the last days of their lives. The conditions were appalling. The prisoners slept on the floor, were given almost no food or water, and endured constant insults from the mob outside. Their captors subjected them to psychological torture, staging mock executions, and sending prostitutes into their cells to try to break their moral resolve. But the Claretians did not waver. They continued to pray, to encourage one another, and to prepare for what they knew was coming. Some of them, deprived of proper paper, scribbled their last words on wooden benches, the underside of a piano stool, or even the walls of their cell. Their messages spoke of faith, love, and forgiveness. "Mama, don't cry. Jesus is asking for my blood. I am going to shed it out of love for him. I will be a martyr. I'm going to heaven. I will be waiting for you there." Salvador Pajam Serra, 23-year-old theology student. "Christ, we who are about to die salute thee." Inscribed on a piano stool, "With all my heart, I forgive all who have wittingly or unwittingly offended me. I die content." Juan Sanchez Monares, 23-year-old seminarian. Despite their suffering, they found strength in their faith. When they received word that one of their own, Salvador Pajam Serra, was being offered a chance to escape because of a connection with one of the guards, his response was immediate. "And what about my companions? Can you get them out too?" "No, just you," the guard replied. "That I can't accept. I'd rather stay and be a martyr with them." The first executions took place on August 2nd, when the superior, Father Monares, and 2 others were taken to the cemetery outside town. They were shot alongside lay Catholics, including a gypsy nicknamed El Pio, who had been arrested simply for defending a priest carrying a rosary. As the days passed, more groups were taken. Each time, the Claretians met their fate with unwavering courage. When their names were called, they would bid farewell to their companions, receive absolution from the remaining priest, and leave the auditorium with dignity. On August 12th, the guards arrived at 3 a.m. called the next group. The seminarians lined up, their hands bound behind their backs. Before being loaded into the van, they turned to one another in silent farewell, and the last remaining priest gave them general absolution. Their captors tried to break them one final time, You still have time. Don't you want to come with us to fight against the fascists? Asked the communist leader, Marian Abad. Long live Christ the King, replied the Claretian students. Why won't you say, long live the revolution? Abad pressed again. Long live Christ the King, the Claretians answered. Their hands tied, they were led to the cemetery, where they knelt down with their arms in the form of a cross. As their voices still rang out in defiance, shouting, Viva Cristo Rey, the gunfire erupted, silencing them forever. The executions continued until August 15th, the feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. On this day, the final group of 20 seminarians were taken. Before leaving, they were asked one last time, where would you rather go? To the front to fight against fascism, or to the firing squad? Without hesitation, they replied, we would rather die for God and for Spain. Once again, they were bound, loaded into the truck, and driven to their execution site. They prayed and sang hymns, even as the guards struck them with rifle butts to silence them. When they arrived, they were given the same ultimatum. Renounce their faith and live, or remain faithful and die. As before, the response was the same. They knelt down, arms extended like Christ on the cross, and cried out, Viva Cristo Rey, until they too were gunned down. A legacy of faith and martyrdom. The story of the 51 Claretians of Barbastro spread quickly, and they were soon regarded as martyrs by the faithful. After the war, their bodies were recovered and eventually placed in the Church of the Heart of Mary in Barbastro. Their writings, preserved by those who found them, remain a powerful testament to their faith and courage. The Catholic Church formally recognized their martyrdom, and on October 25, 1992, Pope John Paul II beatified them, calling them the voice of the countless martyrs of our time. Their sacrifice is a sobering reminder that martyrdom is not a thing of the past. In a world where faith is often challenged and even persecuted, their example calls every Catholic to stand firm in their beliefs, no matter the cost. They could have chosen safety. They could have chosen compromise. Instead, they chose Christ. And with their final breath, they left behind a cry that echoes through history. Viva Cristo Rey. Please pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters in Christ.